What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this video is going to be a little bit of a response to a long discussion or monologue that Ariel Helwani had yesterday about the state of the lightweight division, and in particular, what's going on with Arman Tsarukyan and the fact that he got passed up for a title shot. And not only did he get passed up for a title shot when he's the #1 contender, but now Dana White's saying that he's going to have to wait his turn to get a title shot. And he's going back to the pullout that happened last January against Islam Makhachev and clinging to that. Now, Ariel does make some good points. I mean, he is correct in the things that he's saying factually, but I wanted to color it in and give some context because I think that he's looking at it in a way where he's having a strong emotional response, saying that it's completely unfair, which obviously there's merit to what he's saying. But at the same time, from the UFC's perspective, like, I fully understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's not such a mystery as I think like Ariel's proclaiming, almost acting as if like the UFC has just lost all ability to have some semblance of a ranking system and an ordering to the fights and whatnot. So I'm going to color in all of his comments because he gave a really heated rant. He was very, very upset, very, very upset for Arman and the state of the UFC and saying that it's not really the best fight, the best. I'm going to explain from a purely objective, in my opinion, logical standpoint of what's going on, because I think it's very obvious. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start right here at the beginning of this monologue. Check this out.
In the UFC, the best fight, the best, the #1 contender fights for the belt. And you have Arman Tsarukyan, who is the #1 contender in the UFC's lightweight division. Not only is he not fighting for the belt next, he is not even in the interim title fight to determine who's the interim champion, and we suspect that the interim champion will then fight the champion. And when asked about that, what does Dana White say? I don't care about the number. If you ever had any indication, if you ever wanted to know truly how meaningless the rankings are, just take a listen to this sound.
Arman Tsarukyan, obviously the odd man out now. We expect Ilya to be unifying against the interim title winner, which would, make a long runway for his
I wouldn't
title.
say that he's the odd man out. He had an opportunity, and you guys know how that played out, and he's gonna have to work his way back. I don't give a shit what the number says. He's gonna have to work his way back. There's just too much goes into this for those type of things to happen. We had a little. We're talking back in my room tonight, and we're talking about all the crazy shit that's happened over the last 20-something years. But you can't do that. You can't get the opportunity, and then it can't end that way. So he's got to work his way back.
So the message is take the next fight you offer him, obviously.
No, I mean, he obviously. He knows what's going on. I don't give a shit what everybody else says. He knows what's going on, and he's got to work his way back to that title shot.
I don't give a shit what the number says. So there you go. If you're the #1 contender, it means nothing. If you have a
Okay, so I'm going to jump in right here. The thing that's happening right now, which happens, it does happen occasionally, especially when it's things involving Dana White where Ariel gets really heated. And I've said many times, the bias is there for a reason. So I don't begrudge him for just always wanting to hammer Dana White. Dana White tried to end this guy's career. The problem is he'll never, I don't think, ever be able to detach from that resentment, and therefore that's going to color a lot of his outrage and anger when it comes to these types of things. But I don't begrudge him for it. I understand it. It makes total sense. But so let me dial it back for people who heard this. I'll explain exactly what I think is going on, which I'm pretty sure is exactly factually correct. So he's saying that the rankings are absolutely meaningless because of this example. They're not meaningless. Obviously, it's not like they're dipping down into the rankings in number 10 or number 15. There is meaning to the rankings, and they do have merit. Is it always going to be #1 contender up next? No. And they stray for that for various reasons, sometimes to make super exciting fights, sometimes to reward fighters for outstanding performances. In this particular case, it's very simple. It's very obvious to me what's happening. This is actually has nothing to do with Arman Tsarukyan and passing him over. I don't believe it's that. I think Dana White is bringing the old stuff up as a scapegoat to try and explain why they made the decision. But here's the reason. It's very simple. Paramount era begins in January. This is the first card of the entire Paramount era. And it's very, very important that they want to make a phenomenal first impression, not only for the existing UFC fans. I mean, we're already in. We're going to watch no matter what. We're going to sign up immediately as soon as this last fight is over on the ESPN era. I'm canceling ESPN Plus. Like, it's happening. But there's also a huge audience that Paramount already possesses that they're going to pop on the UFC because it's going to be on. It's going to be part of the subscription. It's going to be free. There might also be other people that are like, I'll try it for a month. I'll do the opening period, the free 7-day or 14-day trial, whatever it is. And they're going to check out the fights. They recognize that they need this fight card to be a smash. Okay. And as such, that's why they're stacking it the way it is. But they couldn't end. This is the other thing that Ariel got upset about, but I understand why they did this. They can't put Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. As much as us hardcores recognize that this is the greatest versus the greatest potentially, and we're about to see just an absolute war between two megastars in the UFC, that does not have nearly as much appeal in general, I think, to casuals or people that are dipping their toe in to the UFC and to mixed martial arts as a Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje fight, because Justin Gaethje objectively creates the most fascinating fights and interesting and fun. Well, okay, fascinating. If somebody's a hardcore jiu-jitsu practitioner or whatever, maybe they want to see more grappling, but you get what I'm saying. Overall, he is the most exciting fighter in the UFC, and that's backed up by data. That's backed up by fight of the night bonuses and whatever he's achieved all over the history of his career. Paddy Pimblett, on the same token, is also pure excitement. He throws hands. When he gets on the ground, he does tons of damage, and he brings in a big fan base with him. So they're trying to capture and maximize. They're trying to capture the largest audience possible and maximize this first experience and this first impression. So like, that's obviously what's going on. It has big importance. So why did Arman Tsarukyan get passed over? Remember, it was going to be Paddy versus Ilya. So Arman was going to get passed over regardless in terms of the title shot, because they, again, wanted this to be a banger fight. What happened is that Ilya is needing to take some time off. So they know that title fight could have easily been justified as like being the main event. But then when Ilya drops out, they still wanted a banger of a fight at the top of the card. Okay. And the only way that they could put Paddy versus Gaethje, which is an amazing fight, but the only way that they can justify putting it above Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison is they have to put a belt on the line. So that's where the interim title came from. It's not just to screw over Arman. I don't believe that anyways. It's because they needed a title. And then why not give it to Arman instead of Gaethje? Because I think that they're also trying to give Paddy a little bit more of a chance. I think Arman is a more difficult matchup, and just that's the way the cookies crumble. Look, it does suck for Arman Tsarukyan, because we would think after the weight, weighing in as the backup fighter, showing that he can make weight, then fighting Dan Hooker, smashing Dan Hooker, we would think that it's obvious, that it's a foregone conclusion that he should be up next. And I think he should be in all of the situations, but in this one, they need to make a splash, and that's what's happening. Are the rankings meaningless? No, they're obviously not meaningless, but do they have some wiggle room within the rankings to make these types of decisions? I mean, obviously, absolutely they do. And I think overall, for all of us fans, for the UFC, for people that love the sport, or people that are coming in and being new fans to the sport, I get where the UFC is doing, and I think this is actually a correct move, as sad as it is for Arman Tsarukyan. So why did Dana White bring that stuff up? Because he can't say what I'm saying. He can't say that this is a business move, that Paddy brings way more eyeballs, Gaethje brings, people will get pissed if he said that, because it's just like, wait a minute, what? You're literally just making this a pure popularity contest at this point, at this level in the sport? That's so unfair. It is unfair, but that's why. Those are the stakes. And I think in the long term, if they can make this first impression correctly and get this Paramount first card to hit the way that they want it to hit, with an amazing line of fights and the main event just to be an absolute smash, then it's going to pay dividends down the line. So pay dividends for the UFC and for Paramount as well. You also notice that Paramount's down in bidding war for Warner Brothers movie studios. So they're making big moves. They're trying to, I feel like they're trying to take over, be the more dominant player than Netflix right now, as they're trying to outbid Netflix. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces here. There's a lot of things on the line. And I think we have to be respectful of the fact, or like, not respectful is not really the right word, but we should be aware of these things and not just ignore them and just cry, oh my God, the meritocracy is being thrown away. What's happening to the sport? Like, there are reasons, I guarantee you, behind these decisions. And I do think those are the reasons. All right, I'm going to let Ariel continue a little bit more.
Upset the brass, if you've upset the company, the promotion, you're not fighting for the belt. So it's not. And again, like I said, Dana White is bringing that up for a public reason as to why Arman's not getting this shot, and then obviously not the next title shot, because it's going to be the interim.
champ, right? That is going to fight for the belt. It's not that he's upset. I mean, he did upset the brass, but that made sense because he pulled out of a main event one day before. Like, that's crazy. And obviously that caused a lot of issues for the UFC, and they were super pissed. But I think he's made amends. I don't actually think that's what's going on here. It's not that they're still pissed. I think he's gotten back in their good graces, but they had to make this decision. And he, unfortunately, is collateral damage. I do believe, though, overall for the fighters as well, this is the better move because it's going to raise up the sport, bring in more money, bring in more eyeballs, and that will eventually raise payments to the fighters. And the people that are always upset about fighter pay and how it should be more, this is all going towards that. The more revenue that comes in, the more eyeballs on the sport, the more that fighter pay can and will go up. And for people that think it won't, look at the history of the sport. I know people love to complain about fighter pay, but look how much it's gone up from the beginning, where the UFC champs were making $5,000, $10,000 to win those tournaments. And now they're making millions of dollars. Maybe you might argue that it's still not proportionate to the profit, which is what should be talked about, not the revenue. And I don't know for sure how disproportionate it is, but you can 100% say that as the sport has grown, fighter pay has grown with it.
The best fighting the best. It's not the number one contender fights the champion. It's if you are in their good graces at that moment in time, you will fight for the belt. Just ask Arman Tsarukyan. And by the way, this has happened before. UFC 177, Renan Barao loses the title to TJ Dillashaw. He is scheduled to fight TJ Dillashaw in Sacramento, UFC 177. On weigh-in day, he slips, he hits his head, he's ruled out. Joe Soto steps in to fight TJ Dillashaw. Renan Barao has to fight one fight. He beats Mitch Gagnon. He beats him. He gets another crack at TJ Dillashaw. Arman had that fight. He beat Dan Hooker. How much more?
It's a little different. But again, I don't even think any of this is relevant because I think Ariel's missing the point. But it's a little different because that's a slip, that's an injury. This one, they were very suspicious. And Justin did a whole breakdown. I'm not going to go into it again, but they were suspicious. And I think Dana White still doesn't buy the back injury. So you have to take that into account. You can't sweep that under the rug. Even if it's not true, that's what Dana White believes. But again, I think Ariel's missing the point here. I don't even think this has anything to do with the decision. He's saying that as a nice public-facing reason. The real thing is they had to put the business first at this point because too much is on the line, too much is at stake. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I think that's the real that's the real Arman Tsarukyan situation. There's a little bit of protection of Paddy Pimblett, I guess you could say, in terms of catapulting him up so he can still get that Ilya Paddy Pimblett super fight. There's also the fact that they need to make a big splash at this first ever Paramount event to just capture as many people as possible. If that event goes well, people will tune in the following week to see a guaranteed banger of Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. So I bet you anything that is the plan. That is why they're doing what they're doing. And that's it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I'm right? Do you agree with me? Or do you think I'm way off and Ariel is actually much more on the right track? Happy to hear either perspective. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.